Well, everyone, it's that time of year again. In January, I try to get out as many still worth it videos as I can, and we finally get to talk about none other than the Xbox 360. Now, I've talked about basically everything iPhone, everything Android, and I even talked about Sony consoles, PSPs, I've talked about those, the Nintendo consoles, all of those, and now we finally get to talk about the Xbox 360. And what's funny is about this console is I never really owned it. Like, I kind of did, but I never really played any games with it. I only really played like Halo, for example. Really, other than that, I never really played any mini games on it for sure. I didn't grow up with this console, but I kind of did. It's kind of hard to explain. So like, I was never into gaming, but this console was one of the gaming consoles I had in my house, and I never had like Xbox Live or anything like that, which I'll get into in a second, but I did kind of play with it. So without further ado, I'm not going to spend 50 minutes talking about whether I played with it or not. Now, the Xbox 360 actually came out in 2005. So what's funny is that this thing came out in 2005, but there were like several iterations and several different consoles on top of it. Now, I think the biggest thing about the Xbox 360, which I talked about just a couple of months ago in my 2019 video, that's why I'm trying to get this one out sooner than later because I love talking about consoles. The thing with this console was, in my opinion, probably the most important thing about it was the online format of it. Basically, you were able to play these games online, and that is one of the most important things about this console. I mean, if you look at it now, basically anything you play with, basically even on your phone, if you play Android games, iPhone games, whatever, all these games are made for online format, and those are the ones that tend to take off. You look at Fortnite, you look at PUBG, you look at all these different games, they're all played online, and thus, people want to play those games anyway because you can play with your friends and everything. And with the Xbox 360 and with the Xbox Live, you had that functionality, which was super, super cool. Now, the original Xbox was also kind of able to do it, but not really. But the Xbox 360 with Xbox Live, yeah, you had to pay for it, but that honestly opened the doors for so many different functionalities with those things, which is crazy. And I'll go ahead and talk about those in a second as well, which is pretty insane. Now, looking around the Xbox 360, for sure, it's aged quite a bit, but the funny thing is, even if you look at like the Xbox Series X, that thing, I mean, it doesn't really look that good. I mean, yeah, it looks decent, but like, it looks more or less the same as what like a box or a rectangular box. It doesn't look anything like crazy. I think the Xbox One X looks better than that, to be honest. But the Xbox 360 coming even from the original Xbox was definitely a huge upgrade. I had the original Xbox too. I should make a video about this here. And the biggest thing I liked about the Xbox 360 wasn't even necessarily the console itself, but was the controller. The 360 is pretty much known for having one of the best controllers out. Whenever you played with that thing, it literally just, I mean, even nowadays when I mess with it or anything, it still comes across as one of the most functional controllers. I own the PS4, I own the Xbox One X and all those, and I still like the Xbox 360's controller, which kind of is the same thing as the Xbox One. Whenever I'm using it, whenever I'm playing with it, it definitely comes across as something that I definitely love playing with, which is one of the most awesome things. Now, one of the things I hate about that controller, which mine specifically had, was the AA batteries. On some of them, you didn't necessarily, you had to actually change the batteries in them, which kind of sucked. But in some cases, you were able to get those rechargeable batteries. So if you were, a richer person, you can go and afford that. When I was like 12 and I had one of these, I couldn't necessarily just go buy it. Even $50 at the time a lot. So, but luckily things have changed and now I can finally afford rechargeable batteries. Now, what's funny is that this console, actually the Xbox 360, is the 6th highest selling home video console ever. I read that straight from Wikipedia, and it's actually the highest selling console made by an American company. So I didn't even think about that. Yeah, Microsoft is an American company, so yeah, they made the Xbox 360. That's pretty cool. And they also mentioned a company of a specific news outlet of tech that I will not name because they're trash and I should never name them ever again. They actually struck one of my videos down. Now, the Xbox 360 was sold pretty much from 2005, and then those many iterations that came out after it, the Xbox 360e, the Slim, the Kinect versions, which I have all of them. I will also be making videos about those as well. And then the Xbox One came out in 2013, so they eventually stopped selling those ones. Now, basically how it holds up now in 2020 is definitely kind of a mixed reaction. For sure, you can get an Xbox 360 for super cheap, and on top of that, you can definitely get all those games and everything for it too for not that much. But the thing is that, I'll definitely say the pros first. The gaming selection for this thing is on par with a lot of the other gaming consoles out there in the market. You can definitely, like I said before, with like I think the Nintendo consoles probably have a little bit more of a gaming selection, but the Xbox 360 in and of itself has a lot of things going for it for sure. I think it's crazy the amount of things you can do with it. I think with the Xbox 360, one of its biggest advantages for sure, that maybe something that has over maybe like a Nintendo Wii, for example, would definitely be the graphics of these consoles. So literally the Xbox 360 games, even now I look at some of them, I'm like, wow, like it can definitely handle its own. I play like Halo 3 and even Halo 4, for example. I don't even know if Halo 4 was available for it, but Halo 3 for sure. As you know, I know nothing about gaming. Halo 3, I look at those graphics, I'm like, dude, that game still is like pretty decent. Like it's not that bad in graphics at all. I think it definitely holds its own. And with the newer games, I think Forza, for example, one of those, there were many Forza games out for this thing too, and those games handled very, very well on this thing as well, and those graphics are super great. And even now in 2020, a whole 15 years later, this thing's graphics capability is still up there, man, and that's one of the biggest advantages for it. Even when a small thing is that when you're going through the UI and you're going from like picking a DVD or something like that, or even going through your friends list or to the settings, the whole entire user interface is actually super clean, and I think that's a really cool thing. I think these gaming manufacturers don't get enough credit for their software. I look at like PS4s and even that one's okay. Like the Xbox 360 with how it's set up, I mean, obviously Microsoft knows software very well. They have Windows and all that. So they kind of, use their software ability into their gaming console. And to make something as timeless as the Xbox 360's UI is super impressive. I dare you to go, buy an Xbox 360 and look at the software and just kind of appreciate that. That's honestly like, if you guys know my channel, like I talk a lot about software. I talk about a lot about iOS and Android. And that's something that seems to be kind of overlooked a lot. The software of the Xbox 360 is literally as impressive as it gets. And the fact that this thing came out in 2005, now obviously there were software updates that didn't come out with the software, it was a lot uglier before, but they cleaned it out, they iterated it over time, and that's one of the most impressive things for sure. So the Xbox 360 software is super impressive, and I definitely do like it. Now the biggest thing I might hear nowadays, or the biggest complaint of the Xbox 360, would probably be the lack of upcoming games, like newer games and everything. And obviously that's anytime you have like an older console like that. I've talked about this with the Nintendo DS, even now like the Nintendo 3DS and PS Vita is already there too. These kind of consoles, even the PS3, there's no more games being made for them for the most part because they have successors. They have the Xbox One line and the PS4 line and the Nintendo Switches. So that's just kind of one thing you have to keep in mind. I mean, that's probably the biggest disadvantage for these things, is that there's no more games. But on the flip side, there's also a humongous advantage for these older consoles. These older games, there's so many older games that sometimes they're not backwards compatible with their newer devices. Sometimes you can't necessarily, like with the Xbox Series X, I don't think that's backwards compatible with Xbox 360 games, like how the Xbox One X was. So there's a huge gaming selection there that you're not necessarily able to get unless you personally own those consoles, and that's what you get when you get one of these consoles. PS3, for example, tons of games available, but with the newer consoles, it's not necessarily backwards compatible. Same exact thing with the Xbox 360. So yes, an Xbox One X, an Xbox One S, those things are better consoles for sure, and I'm not trying to say you should get an Xbox 360 over those, but there's still some advantage by having a huge, vast gaming library like the Xbox 360. Whether you're going to be on live or not, whether you're going to play with your friends, whatever, it doesn't matter, you still have that capability of playing all those games. Games are much cheaper for these older consoles as well, and looking into the future, games are pretty much only getting more and more expensive. These older classical games that used to be made, like the Halos and the Forzas and whatever Xbox 360 games are out there as well, you have that capability of playing them on an Xbox 360 where you don't necessarily have it on these newer consoles. Another huge thing about the Xbox 360 that might be a disadvantage, the shops and like the app stores and all those things, they're not really the best. Back in 2005, even when the iterations of the Xbox 360s came out, they tried their best to kind of keep up, but it's really nothing even compared to the newest consoles. You look at something like the Xbox Live Marketplace, it really wasn't the best. Yeah, they had, a couple things here and there that you could do, and you can buy a bunch of games from them, but it's still nothing like the newer stores that we have with the Xbox One X and stuff. So I'm not going to sit here and say it's the worst, but I do appreciate the software aspect of it, and I do appreciate that it even had an app market like that, or Xbox Live Marketplace, but it wasn't the best, and that's probably one of the interesting things about it for sure. Also, I have to mention this, I hate mentioning it, but it happened to me personally with the Xbox 360. I barely even used it, but my console did have the red light of death, or red ring of death, whatever you want to call it, and that was one of the biggest issues for this console. It's not a deal breaker for sure. I mean, I attribute the same thing to like the iPhone 6 Plus Bendgate and the like audio IC issues on the iPhone 7 and like all those different issues that phones have. Basically, like, yes, those issues exist, but you kind of get used to it and you kind of get over it over time. I think with the red light of death, there were some ways to fix it and everything, and most probably if you're getting an Xbox 360 now and it hasn't experienced those problems, I think you're probably not going to experience it, to be honest, because it's been so long. Most probably they got those issues fixed. but it's still kind of a weird thing that happened. So I don't want to sit here and say, and taint the Xbox 360's legacy, because it definitely was one of the most impressive things ever, but it is something you kind of had to keep in mind when you're getting this console, And so to kind of sum up this video and to answer the question, I mean, this isn't a still worth it video. The Xbox 360 is still worth it no matter what, but should you even pick up an Xbox 360 in 2020? As I've said before with these older consoles, the answer is always yes. Something like an Xbox 360, even to own it, it's just part of the history of technology. The Xbox 360 is a super impressive console still. I think it still has a lot going for it. You have a huge gaming selection for it. It's very cheap to get. Games are very cheap to get for it. It's just like a no-brainer. I'm sure you can hack it or modify it in some ways, too as well. So you just have to be a little careful, make sure you don't get the red light of death on it, make sure you're set in that department. But I think the Xbox 360 is one of the most impressive consoles ever. Microsoft really did a great job with it, and I'm glad they released the Xbox One line, which I personally do like that line too. I think, they made it affordable. They didn't make it like super expensive, and it's super competitive for what it is. Now, all I'm praying for now is that Microsoft makes some sort of handheld console. If they make a portable console, that will be crazy. I know they didn't want to make it before because they were trying to sell their Windows phones, but that really wasn't working out that well. Hopefully now they can actually make some sort of portable Microsoft console, and I think that would be crazy. That pretty much covers it, guys. If you have any questions or anything, leave it down in the comment section below. Hit that like button, that would mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. Every single subscriber that we get really does count, so it would mean so much if you guys could hit that. Also check out the other links down in the description as well. My Twitter, my Instagram, my second channel. All those links are linked down below. I'd really appreciate if you guys could check it out. But more importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.